What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Drites Bro Sports Channel. Ethan here, back at it with another reaction to the NFL Week 2. Before we get started, if you find the videos entertaining or like them at all, please like the video. Helps me out on YouTube. And feel free to subscribe if you're interested in seeing more throughout the season. We'll be doing stuff like this all NFL season. Also, guys, if you have any questions about your team specifically or your fantasy team specifically, please just feel free to comment on really any video on the channel. And I will see that you commented. I don't have a ton of comments. I'm not catching up on anything. I don't get a lot of comments. So if you comment, I'll see your fantasy question right away, and I'll get back to you like almost immediately in most cases, depending on when you comment. But please feel free to do that. I like helping you guys with your fantasy questions. This will be more of like a week 2 reaction, and we'll talk about some of the new fantasy implications as well. I don't want to make the video take too long, so we're going to get into it, and for the most part, I'm going to skim over some of the obvious starts and sits guys, but if there's anyone that's like new that's emerged, then we will spend a second to talk about it. We'll go through each matchup, though. First matchup, Bills-Dolphins. Big time game Thursday night. The last video I posted, we were making it during the beginning of this game. Some crazy stuff ended up happening, though, so we'll definitely talk about that. Let's start with the Bills. They win 31-10. Pretty easy win for them. They looked like the better team the whole time. Obviously, starting Allen, Cook had an awesome game, scored multiple touchdowns. Your no wide receiver there has really emerged yet. We're waiting for that. We're waiting to see if Keon Coleman or Shakir is going to emerge. Shakir is looking like it's between Keon Coleman and Shakir right now. They both look like they could be it in that offense, but it's most likely going to end up being Keon Coleman if it happens to be one of them. However, Shakir so far at the beginning of the season looks a little better. We're going on to the tight ends. I predicted it to be a bounce back week or a get right maybe week for Dalton Kincaid. Didn't have a great game still. Did look like they're targeting him a little bit more. I think it's just going to be a bad year for tight ends, guys. And Dalton Kincaid's going to be a part of that. He's going to have some good weeks, but he's just not getting the same amount of targets so far that he was last year. It's all James Cook and it's all Josh Allen so far. So maybe that ends up changing, but you're still starting Kincaid in every league. It's just we're waiting. We just don't know when he's going to start to emerge as like that tight end one where everyone drafted him as. Let's move on. Dolphins, guys, they didn't look very good. Watching the game, I'm gonna be biased right now. I was down on Achane all offseason. Obviously, he's proving me completely wrong, and I'm gonna own that. I'm very wrong about him. I'm gonna say though, there's a couple things with Achane I want to talk about in this video. Number one, once again, remember I'm a little biased against Achane. He is being used too much, I think. If you have Achane, you love it. You definitely don't have a problem with him getting more touches or all of the touches. But I'm worried about him getting injured. He's no way he's going to be able to carry the amount of workload he has been and stay healthy all season. Mostert's out. He was out this week, so maybe when Mostert comes back, he takes a little bit of the carries back, and it's not as much of a big deal. Even then, though, I think they're giving him a little bit too many touches, and he's going to get hurt. And also to build off of that, another point to that, their offense has looked like it's struggled the first 2 weeks against some matchups where it's like should be a decent matchup for this high octane Dolphins offense, but excuse me, but I think they're trying to feed Achane way too much, and it's starting to hinder their offense a little bit. It's like making them less explosive somehow. I think they're just like relying so much on the ability of Achane to have big plays and average a lot of, a good yards per touch like he did last year, that it's like hindering other players on the team, and it's making their offense look way worse than they should be. Once again, biased take against Achane. If you have Achane, you love the way they're using him. I'm worried about him getting injured, and I honestly think they're giving him the ball too much in general, and it's like making their offense worse somehow. Probably a weird take. I'm going to stand on that, though. talk about Tua now. Tua gets hurt. Scary, scary stuff. He's battling so many concussion issues throughout his career. He's on IR, out at least the next 4 weeks. Could be more. We'll see. Bottom line is it's sketchy now. If he gets another concussion when he comes back, presumably this year, his career could be over. You hope that doesn't happen. It's kind of hard to make Tua takes and talk about fantasy football because it's a real life thing and you feel for the person. Just hope he comes back and he's good the rest of the year. Without him being in there, very worried about Tyreek Hill and Waddle. They moved down the rankings, weekly rankings a little bit just because the ceiling's capped without Tua. I think the coach there, Mike McDaniels, is good enough to still scheme them touches and give them opportunities. Just temper expectations a little bit. And last guy I want to talk about there is Jonnu Smith. He looks like a playable guy, a pickup and playable guy, especially with a new quarterback. You think they'd have more like tight end check down kind of chances with a new quarterback coming in. Don't expect him to be like a high upside kind of play, but he got targets last week against the Bills and he looked competent. So if you're having tight end issues, don't be afraid to pick him up and start him. Let's move on. Don't want to make the video too long for you guys. Maybe keep it around like 45 minutes or less. Raiders-Ravens. I was wrong about this game. Another thing I'm willing to own. I talked about it in my last video, the week 2 predictions and starts and sits thing. I thought the Raiders were going to get smashed. That's not the case. Let's start with the Raiders. I think it's because the Raiders have a good coach at the end of the day, and they have some guys that are pros like Minshew. And then they have a guy like Adams that just can take over a game and who had a huge game. Start Devontae Adams in every league. Gardner Minshew's not a guy you will love to start, but he's playable in deep leagues. Going to Myers. Myers is looking like he's going to be the guy that gets hindered by the emergence of Brock Bowers. I think it's going to be a Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams show as long as they're healthy, and Myers is that third guy in the passing game. If he catches a touchdown, he'll be good for you that week, or maybe he has a week where he has some targets, but he's not a guy you really want to start anymore. Low-end tight end 2 or wide receiver 2 if you have to start him. Let's talk about the running backs in Vegas. Does not look like you want to start either guy. Alexander Mattison stole or got the touchdown this week. They're just splitting carries 50-50, and you don't love playing either of them in what should be a mediocre at best Raiders team. Saying they're mediocre, let's go to the Ravens here, who just lost to this mediocre Ravens team or Raiders team at home and blew a fourth quarter lead, and now the Ravens are 0-2. Unfortunate for the Ravens, man. If you're a Ravens fan, that's a bad loss. And then on top of barely losing week 1, it's a tough start to the season. I believe in you guys to get it figured out. Let's go through the players a little bit. Lamar Jackson, you start him every week in fantasy football. He gets so many rushing yards, and he is just a solid play. The only wide receiver you want to start there is Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman looks horrible. Zay Flowers gets a lot of targets. He caught a touchdown this week. He looked really good. I think he needs to just be fed, to be honest. Only really receiver you want to start, but let's talk about the tight ends. Little bit of a bounce back game for Mark Andrews. Likely came way back down to earth, crashing down to earth. Kind of thought that could happen. The thing that worries me now, though, is that Isaiah Likely and Andrews, as long as they're healthy, are just going to cancel each other's upsides out for the most part. Andrews is going to have good weeks. Isaiah Likely is going to catch touchdowns some weeks, and it's just going to be ugly as far as fantasy trying to figure out who's going to do what. I think they're both playable, but instead of either one of them being like a high upside play, they're both just low tier tight ends now. Derrick Henry does his thing, gets in the end zone. There's going to be games where he just scores 3 touchdowns. So keep playing him. Don't even think about playing Derrick Henry. Little bit of a weird start to the season, I think, for the Ravens in total, but he's still getting his own, and there's going to be some good matchups eventually. Justice Hill, you keep on your bench in case something happens, but let's move on. Shout out. It's hard for me to say one last thing on the Raiders-Ravens. Hard for me to say as a Broncos fan, but Raiders deserve some respect for that win on the road in Baltimore. So we'll see if they can keep it up. Moving on to the Chargers-Panthers. I think we can skim through this one a little bit. However, we did have some news. Let's start with the Panthers. Bryce Young gets sat. Feel bad for Bryce Young. He was set up for failure. And I feel bad for Panthers fans in general because it looks like he wasted a number 1 overall pick on a guy that is not going to get a chance anymore. So maybe he does. Maybe it works out for Panthers somehow, some way, but it looks very not good for Bryce Young now. Andy Dalton comes in there. Don't expect high things from Andy Dalton. The team still just isn't good around him. However, it might help Adam Thielen and guys like Deontay Johnson. So we got to keep an eye on those receivers through the next few weeks. With Andy Dalton starting, they might have some upside, a little bit more upside now. So we'll see. Don't want to start him still. We have to see how it looks. Don't care about the tight end as of right now. And then Chuba Hubbard is still there. Guy you still don't want to play unless the matchup's good. And then you keep an eye out and wait for Jonathan Brooks and see what happens. Moving on to the Chargers. 2 of the easiest opponents to start a season I've ever seen, even though the Raiders just had a nice win. But my goodness, easy game. You can't take a whole lot away from a game like this. If you're a Chargers fan, you'll take it. You're 2-0. You feel great. Good start to the season for John Harbaugh. And yeah, I mean, fantasy-wise, Justin Herbert's limited with Harbaugh as the coach now. He's just not going to get as many passing opportunities. They want to run the ball a lot. That's probably what it's going to be like most games. Both Edwards and Dobbins look good. Dobbins is a baller. Shout out to Dobbins being healthy. If you got Dobbins on your team this year, that might be the steal of the draft. Play him every week. He goes off and gets a touchdown. Gus Edwards is playable. I think Dobbins is just way more explosive. That's the guy you want. But Gus Edwards, still splitting carries, is going to steal some touchdowns at the goal line. Quentin Johnston, bounce back game. That's a guy you want to pick up if he's on the waiver wire. He's starting to emerge, I think, slowly. And I think the new coaching regime is giving him new confidence. And he looks like he could be the wide receiver 1 there. You still want Ladd. He had a bad game, but I just think like in games where they're going to have to be throwing the ball more, Ladd's going to be a great play still. And then I think the loser of all this for the Chargers is Josh Palmer. He's like playing himself out of being the wide receiver, the number 1 there. And he's looking like the wide receiver 3 through the first 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens. Not big on the tight ends. And we mentioned the running backs, so let's move on. Next game, Saints-Cowboys. We all expected this game to be like the best game of the week. Didn't end up being the best, but maybe a little bit of a shocker. I mean, Cowboys get beat down by the Saints. The Saints are legit. They're very good. The battle with them and the Bucs in their division, who we'll talk about in a second, is going to be fun to watch this year. Kubiak, the coach for the Saints, is awesome, legit. He has unlocked Derek Carr. He's put Derek Carr in the perfect situation for a Derek Carr kind of quarterback, and the offense is just thriving alongside a very good defense. So while we're giving them props, let's go through the players. Derek Carr in fantasy is startable in deeper leagues. You still don't want to start him. I think they're a run-first team, but he's very competent, and he's going to be getting some deep ball touchdowns. Like, he's going to have some worth in fantasy, absolutely. Alvin Kamara scored 4 touchdowns. He is nuts. If he's healthy, he might finish with the running back 1. He's in a very good system with Kubiak. The receivers, Olave had a bounce-back game, nearly scored a touchdown, didn't quite get in. Even though they still crushed the Cowboys, I mean, if they're going to be in any sort of like game script where they're going to be having to throw the ball a little bit more, Olave is going to be the play. Just be patient with Olave. He's going to be fine. Rashid Shaheed catches another long touchdown. What a start to the season for Shaheed. He is definitely like a wide receiver 2. However, if he's not going to catch a touchdown, which isn't going to happen every game, just temper expectations with a guy like Shaheed. Taysom Hill, they use him very weirdly. He doesn't get hardly any targets. However, the game scripts haven't quite been there yet. You can play Taysom Hill, just don't expect a ton from Taysom Hill in your tight end spot. Definitely not an inspiring performance in this game. However, don't think we really expected it to be super inspiring. That's about it for the Saints. Let's move on to the Cowboys. Very disappointing performance. I feel like the Cowboys do this at least once or twice every year where they're just like at home in a good matchup, or even they just like blow a game, or not even blow a game, or just like lose in embarrassing fashion. And then everyone gets to like jump on that hate train for the Cowboys. Not panicking on them, though, here at all. I just think they do this sometimes. Dak's a playable guy in fantasy still. CeeDee Lamb had an awesome touchdown catch. However, he only caught 4 passes. I mean, I'm sure he's still – I don't know the targets. I can look it up here while I'm talking really quickly. I want to see how many targets CeeDee got. Cowboys receiving – he got only 7 targets, out-targeted by Jalen Tolbert. That might be one of the reasons why they lost. I think the Saints probably did a good job doubling CeeDee Lamb. That might have been a part of it. But, I mean, if CeeDee Lamb's catching less than 5-6 passes in a game, they're probably going to struggle. So find ways to throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb more, Dallas Cowboys. Jalen Tolbert should never be out-targeting CeeDee Lamb. With that being said, you start CeeDee Lamb every week in fantasy. Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks are guys that you want on your team. However, you don't necessarily want to start them unless you have to or the matchup's really good. Jake Ferguson was out this game, which I think hurt them a little bit. Hopefully he's back this next week. If not, he's coming off a weird knee injury. So, I mean, you're going to have to wait a few weeks just to, like, see him and see if he's okay. Hopefully maybe he can help ignite something with this Cowboys offense and maybe provide them some safety or safety blanket underneath at least. Really anything. I mean, they just didn't look very good. They have no running game. You probably have to start Zeke in fantasy. You hate it because he's not good. I hope Rico Dowdle starts to emerge there for them. But yeah, hopefully you find the Cowboys, if you're Cowboys fans, bouncing back next week. Let's go to the next one. All right, we're on the Bucks here. Good game this was. We expected this to be a good game. Start with the Buccaneers. They're legit, just like the Saints are, it seems like. Like I mentioned, the battle in that division will be fun to watch this year. Baker Mayfield's a startable guy similar to Derek Carr. Don't expect crazy things from him, but he's definitely competent, and he'll get you some fantasy points. Chris Godwin game this was. He went crazy to the demise of Mike Evans. Mike Evans had a slow game in this one. They're both wide receiver ones, essentially. You want to start in fantasy every week, though. Nothing from the tight end there. You don't want to play Otten at all. The running back room is interesting. I think Rachaad White got a little banged up. Bucky Irving still did not have a good game either. They both didn't have good games rushing. I think the Lions' rushing defense is good. Keep an eye on Rachaad White's injury. If he plays, temper expectations. If he doesn't play, watch out for Bucky Irving to start to take over even more of the workload. So doesn't look good if you're a Rachaad White owner in fantasy. He's opening the door for Bucky Irving to take over. That's how I'm feeling about the backfield in Tampa. Moving on to Detroit, Goff did not play good. They just threw the ball way too much. They needed to run the ball more, and since the Buccaneers forced Jared Goff to throw it, they lost. Jared Goff didn't do very good. Jameson Williams had a good game. You continue to start him as like a wide receiver too. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a great game. However, he got hurt. So keep an eye on Amon-Ra's injury. Hopefully it's only like a week or less, or 2 weeks or less, and he comes back and he's ready to go. Don't like to see him get hurt. If he's hurt, Jameson Williams becomes a high-end wide receiver too, because he's like the guy there. Also, you continue to start Laporta even though he's not showing a lot so far. The running backs and Gibbs and Montgomery are continuing to split carries. As long as they're both healthy, they limit each other's upsides. However, Jahmyr Gibbs is good in PPR, and David Montgomery is going to continue to steal rushing touchdowns. Overall, great game. Buccaneers are legit. don't panic at all if you're the Lions. You hope Amon-Ra is healthy, comes back healthy soon, and you guys get back on track next week. Moving on to the next game, Colts at Green Bay. Interesting game. So, essentially what this told me is that the Colts are being overrated a little bit with Anthony Richardson. The Colts' defense isn't very good, and Anthony Richardson, while being viable in fantasy football, still just isn't very good at throwing the football. The Colts lose 10-16 against a Jordan Love-less Packers. Shout out the Packers for pulling this game off. They were at home. Malik Willis, the coaching staff made him look competent. They leaned on the run game as Josh Jacobs had a crazy day. Of course, I'm a Josh Jacobs guy. He's literally a foot away from scoring a touchdown and then fumbles the ball. It's very annoying. However, Josh Jacobs looked fantastic. They need to keep running the ball and giving him carries even when Jordan Love gets back. Wicks catches a touchdown this week. The ball is just going to be spread around between these receivers and Dobbs and Wicks and then Watson and Jaden Reed. Temper expectations for the receivers still until Jordan Love gets back, though. I mean, even with Wicks catching a touchdown, you don't love much else. Jaden Reed gets targets and gets touches. They scheme stuff up for him, but it's still very much limited with Malik Willis being the quarterback at the moment. One more thing before we're done. The tight ends, we'll touch on them. Two more things, I guess. The tight ends are still who they are. They split times, and they're both on the field a lot. You don't love either of them. You don't want to play any of Packers tight ends. And then we got to mention Marshawn Lloyd just went on IR. So not a great start to his rookie season. Josh Jacobs is looking like a better pick. Colts, we talked about Anthony Richardson. He's not very good at throwing the ball, but he'll get points because of his rushing ability. I think the Packers' defense is good, so that's maybe a little bit of why they were limited. Jonathan Taylor had an okay game. I think they almost needed to give the ball to him more in Jonathan Taylor. The passing game, it looks ugly there because of Richardson's ability to throw. Pittman, low-end wide receiver 2 still. Alec Pierce, don't love Alec Pierce. I think he ended up catching a touchdown again. While we're on this, we probably should just look at it. Colts, and we're going down to Alec Pierce. He did catch the touchdown. So while I said Alec Pierce going into this week probably isn't a guy you really care about, he's the guy that leads or tied for the lead in targets and catches the touchdown. So maybe they're just going to spread the ball out similar to the Packers, and you just don't really like any of their wide receivers all that much in Indy. I think you have to start Pittman just because of the floor and targets that he has. But between Alec Pierce, Mitchell, Doolin, other guys they got, you don't love it. You know, you just put them on your bench if you have them on your team in fantasy. So I expect more from the Colts, within the next few weeks. I expect them to figure something out and start to get some wins. They are 0-2 and it's a bad start to the season. Really boring game here. Browns at Jaguars. Two good defenses. So we have to kind of, put an asterisk. Man, the way I just said that sounded so wrong. And asterisks, I don't even know if I can say the word right. Put an exception. Let's use that. You got everything I'm about to say here. You give it a little bit of an exception because of how good the defenses were, but I just don't like any offense there. The Browns, Watson's still quarterback. Judy's there. Amari Cooper's gonna get targets, but the quarterback just isn't very good. You continue to the same thing with them. I mean, Amari Cooper's like a wide receiver 2 with Deshaun Watson. Jerry Judy's like a flex play. You don't really want anyone else there. You're waiting to hear about Njoku, see when Njoku gets back. We'll talk about the running back room. Ford looks bad, and I think he got out-carried by Foreman. I'm not even going to check it because if you have a mixture of Foreman or Ford, you just have to feel bad right now. I don't like either of them. Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, man, he just doesn't look that good. Not great from Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk continues to be like a low-end wide receiver 2. Brian Thomas like a flex play. ETN and Bigsby, I believe Bigsby got hurt in this game. Maybe bounces ETN back up a little bit. However, you still have to watch how they're going to be splitting the carries this year. ETN did have a decent game. He did score. So ETN owners still have a decent amount of hope, I'd say. Just keep an eye on the backfield. Ingram was out. So we'll see if Ingram is healthy this next week. Just two teams that I'm just not excited about played each other there, and it was a boring game, so I don't have a ton to say about that. I apologize if one of those teams is your team. All right, another one I was wrong about. My gosh, this was another shocker this weekend. I thought the Vikings were going to get humbled and get destroyed, and that did not happen. Shout out to the Vikings. Similar to the Raiders, got to give the Vikings the respect this week. Let's start with the Vikings. Sam Darnold bombed to Justin Jefferson. That just popped in my head first thing. That was a beautiful play. Justin Jefferson's a baller. He did get hurt with a thigh contusion. Doesn't seem too serious. Just keep an eye on that. Naylor's a playable guy with Addison out still. He's getting some targets. Not exciting play, but you can pick him up just to have him and if you have to play him. Naylor's a guy you can play. Still waiting for Hawkinson to come back later this season as their tight end position, and then Jones and Ty Chandler splitting carries, but they both have looked good so far this year, so you can play either of them if you really have to. One of those situations where like Jones is like a running back 2, low end running back 2, and then Tyler Chandler is like a flex play kind of guy. They're both going to get some opportunity in games. Moving on to the 49ers, they're down bad right now. Christian McCaffrey's out for a while on IR. Deebo Samuel's out for the next few weeks, and Ayuk still playing his way back into shape. Doesn't look good. Temper expectations for their offense for the next few weeks. As of right now, Ayuk and Kittle are smash, and Mason are smash starts because of the limited options now that they have. You expect the 49ers with the coaching staff they have in a capable Brock Purdy to start to hopefully hold it down in the next few weeks, continue to rattle off a couple wins. They're still a good team with a good defense. But Shadow Vikings, they were just the better team. And we keep an eye on the injuries for the 49ers and continue to play the backups. So I'm even trying to pick up Greg Jennings in a couple leagues this week. So that's a guy we mentioned last week briefly. Think about a Greg Jennings pickup. Like I said, George Kittle, Ayuk, and Mason are smash plays. You can play Brock Purdy if you have to. Moving on. Sorry, I'm trying to go a little quicker. I don't want to make the video too long. I know you guys don't love listening to super long videos. Seattle, New England. Seattle, another team that just has had a really easy start to the season. They have the Patriots this week, and then they have the Broncos in week 1. They both games they barely win. However, they're winning. So, bigger passing game, I will say, from the Seahawks. Geno Smith's still not a guy that I want to be starting a whole lot in fantasy, but you could if you had to, especially if they get a good matchup. However, JSN bounce back game, had a ton of targets and a ton of receptions. Big time game from him. DK Metcalf had a huge game, not having Pat Surtain covering him. And Tyler Lockett kind of took the back seat in this one. So I kind of hope personally that Tyler Lockett does just take a back seat a little bit most of the time this year. And it's a DK JSN show most weeks. However, as long as Tyler Lockett's there, he's going to sneak in a couple weeks where he takes over and steals a lot of the targets. It just depends on how the defenses are going to play the offense. As far as the running backs go, Kenneth Walker was out, so Zach Charbonnet took over, and he looked great. They pretty much have like a high-end RB1 in real life for Seattle, and then they have like a low-end RB1. They have two very good running backs, and I think as the year goes on, they're probably going to start to slowly just see like a more of a 50-50 split, 60-40 split between Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. So keep an eye on that. Noah Fant's not a guy I'm really excited about in fantasy. The Patriots, Jalen Polk, shout out Jalen Polk. He looked good. He caught a touchdown, or it might have even been 2. I'm not going to check it, but Jalen Polk looked good. Jacoby Brissett, you still don't want to start him in fantasy. Jalen Polk, you're still wanting to really honestly keep him on your bench until he really starts to emerge, or you have to play him during like bye weeks and stuff. Ramondre Stevenson has another good game, so that's like the guy you continue to really want to start. I will say a little bit of a new thing. Hunter Henry had a great game. He's a guy that's not, if he's not picked up in your league, I recommend picking him up if you have a need for tight end. I am doing that myself in a couple leagues. Hunter Henry had a fantastic game, and I'm hoping Jacoby Brissett continues to give him some love and some targets. Not much to say about the other wide receivers there. I think Polk's like the guy I'm most excited about. Moving on. Shout out to the Patriots, though, for playing them good. All right, Titans, Jets. Titans are still just so bad. Pollard and Spears are playable. I'm not really sure if either of them are injured. I believe they're both healthy. If they're both healthy, they're going to continue to kind of be that split. One of those backfields where it's like Tony Pollard is like a low-end running back 2, and then Tajay Spears is like a flex play. Especially when it's like against a good defense like the Jets. Will Levis, another just embarrassing, awful rookie type of mistake, even though he's not a rookie anymore in this game. I just feel that's one of those teams where it's like it's the Broncos, the Titans, and the Panthers, like the worst 3 teams in the NFL. So sorry if you're a Titans fan. Calvin Ridley did have a good touchdown. You continue to start him if you have to. Or actually, just not even if you have to. You just have to start Calvin Ridley. He's a good player. He's like the guy that you want to have if you're having to play any of the Titans players, probably. Not much we want to talk about the tight end still. And DeAndre Hopkins, I did notice catch like a couple passes, but I don't think he had a big game. Kind of continue to wait on him or drop him. Nah, probably don't drop DeAndre Hopkins. You just keep him on your bench and see what happens later in the season. Maybe stuff starts to click. Jets, Aaron Rodgers. It's one of those things where it's like it's going to come from Breece Hall or it's going to come from Garrett Wilson most times. However, in this game, it was the Braylon Allen show. So I'm sorry if you're a Breece Hall owner, especially if you lost your league because of that. But Braylon Allen's also a very good running back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to eat into some of Breece Hall carries this year. And maybe instead of it being like a 80% of the snap share, Breece Hall's maybe getting like closer to 60% of the snaps later in the season, trying to keep him more fresh. So while we're not panicking on Breece Hall, that's just something to think about as Braylon Allen had a great game. You continue to start Breece Hall and continue to start Garrett Wilson. Conklin had a couple catches, but I'd rather have Hunter Henry. So not much else to say. Aaron Rodgers had some really cool plays in the game, but he's just not a guy that you love in fantasy football. Moving down to one of the games that I thought was going to be like the funnest game of the week. Turned out to be fine, but not a whole lot of scoring because both offense couldn't convert in the red zone. Oh, got to take a breath there. Starting with the Giants, Daniel Jones sucks. We all know that. The running back, Singletary, isn't very good. Kind of all knew that. They're just a bad team. However, they have Malik Neighbors. And they have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's also a good receiver. So, in good matchups, Malik Neighbors is going to have a great chance to go off. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to have a chance to have a great game. You probably have to start both of those guys in every matchup. I'm fine with that when it comes to Malik Neighbors. He's going to have a great season if he's healthy. He's a baller. Wan'Dale Robinson's like a lower-end wide receiver too, just because of his quarterback. So keep that in mind. Malik Neighbors balled out. I called it. I called that he was going to have a big game. I called that he was going to score a touchdown. He did have a horrible drop, I will say, but he's a rookie, man. He's still going to be a baller. That happens all the time with receivers. They have like a bad drop and then they just continue to go off throughout the year. So, excuse me. I'm going to pick my phone up and shut the door real quick just so you guys don't hear the wife just got home. All right, let's continue this. Hopefully my screen changing there didn't just ruin the video in any way. But, yeah, not much to talk about the tight end there either. So we're going to move on to the Commanders. Jayden Daniels, shout out. They got their first dub of the Jayden Daniels career. Jayden Daniels a beast. He's still figuring out the passing thing, but he he reminds me of Lamar, man. He looks great. I will say Brian Robinson Jr. is trending towards a RB1 in fantasy. He looks fantastic. Eckler's like a flex play. They still give him some usage. Brian Robinson Jr. is just a way better running back overall. So he looks great if he's staying healthy this year. While Jayden Daniels is struggling to throw the ball, though, you can't really start any pass catchers there. I mean, Terry McLaurin's struggling. Ertz is a guy that is somewhat of a security blanket for him, if you want to call him that, but even he isn't scoring a lot. I just think this offense is going to not be scoring a lot of points, and I think most of the fantasy value is going to be had in the rushing game with the quarterback and the running back. So I'm sorry if you got Terry McLaurin thinking it was going to be a smash play. It's just proving that Jayden Daniels just hasn't figured out the passing thing yet. He's probably not going to for a while. So temper your expectations for the passing game in Washington. However, it was a good win for them and a cool that he got his first one. Jayden Daniels did. Moving on, Rams Cardinals. Not very shocking to me personally, but a little bit shocking, I think, to some. Cardinals destroy the Rams. Marvin Harrison Jr. Breakout game. That's pretty much what it was from the Cardinals' perspective. I mean, McBride had a good game. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a good game. I'm pretty sure Dortch and Michael Wilson also had a good game. So, fantasy relevancy, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is now like a wide receiver one like we drafted him to be. Kyler Murray's a great play. He looks very healthy and a great team. Or a great offense. Maybe not a great team, but a great offense. James Conner looks great. Continue to play James Conner, RB1. Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson are like flex plays if you need to play them for whatever reason. They looked awesome. They destroyed the Rams here. The Rams are down horrifically bad. Matthew Stafford's still playing, he's still healthy. He's still a good quarterback. However, he's lost all of his weapons. Cooper Kupp's now hurt. We already know Puka's out. Higbee's on IR. Parkinson did nothing, who was a guy that I was excited about after week one, picking up and filling in tight end spots. I'm about to drop him. If you need to fantasy-wise, I mean, pick up Ty Johnson and Demarcus Robinson. Those guys are like plug-and-play guys if you need to do that. They should be getting all the targets now, but you don't feel good about it at all if you're a Rams fan. I mean, you just got destroyed by what isn't that good of a defense, and you just got destroyed by them. I mean, you play Kyron Williams. He should be getting a lot of usage now that Puka and Kupp are out. Sorry if you're a Rams fan, though. You're down horrifically bad, at least for the next 4 weeks, until they get some of their weapons back. All right. The most boring game of the week. I'll do a little bit of a Broncos rant, and then we'll try to move it on quickly so the video is not too long. Broncos, Steelers. Get the Steelers over with. I knew this was going to be how the game turned out. Justin Fields isn't that good, but, I mean, you do enough as a quarterback like that with the defense that you have, and you're going to win a lot of games. That's just how the Steelers are. I think Justin Fields just should be the quarterback over Russell Wilson this year. We'll see how that works out. However, it's not going to change a whole lot for me. Pickens is a playable guy there because he's the only guy there. You play Pickens as like a wide receiver too, and then that's about it. And then you look over at Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris, a guy that's like a running back too, and then Jaylen Warren's a flex play. One of those kinds of situations. Najee Harris is probably going to get all of the goal line carries, but Jaylen Warren will take a decent amount of snaps away from him. Pat Freiermuth isn't a guy that you want to play. The offense just isn't good enough there. And then that's it for the Steelers, really. They're just going to win off of field goals and defense this year. It's ultimately a pretty easy win for them. I know the score ended up being close, but that's just kind of what the Broncos do. They just are trash, horrible the whole game. And then when it comes time to make it look less embarrassing, then they kick a field goal just so it looks a little better. Their defense is good enough to keep them into a lot of games. However, the offense with Bo Nix is horrendous. You don't blame it all on Bo Nix. However, I'm a guy that wasn't super high on Bo Nix to begin with. He's a guy that was the 5th or 6th QB drafted in the QB class. I don't know where the upside is with Bo Nix. You hope that Sean Payton can work it out with him. However, through 2 weeks, Sean Payton's talked a lot about Bo Nix being great, and the chemistry between the two and the what's going on between the two through the first 2 weeks is one of the worst things I've ever seen. The only thing you have to hold on as a Broncos fan right now is that it's early and we have to just try to be patient. If it looks like this in week 10, then I'm out. I have no more patience after week 10 if it's still similar to this. Like, there needs to be some sort of spark if we're going to be confident in Bo Nix in the next coming years. The problem with the Broncos, guys, is that the whole team is trash. They're hindered by the Russell Wilson dead cap, and they're not able to pay players because not only do no players want to go there, but they have no star players there to attract any other players. So their whole roster's bad. Javonte Williams, McLaughlin, don't play them. They're borderline droppable. I mean, when Audric Estime comes back, I think Audric Estime should be the guy that gets half the carries. The receivers are trash with Bo Nix. Bo Nix hasn't looked comfortable at all. He can't throw the ball really down the field, hardly at all. He did connect on a trick play that was a long pass, but it looks horrible. Cortland Sutton's like a flex play at this point, not even a wide receiver 2 anymore. Josh Reynolds is a flex play, I guess, if you want to I doubt both Sutton and Reynolds are going to do good in the same game, though, so you just don't really want to play either of them. Other than that, it looks like guys like Troy Franklin, Mims, Vele are all guys that just are on the waiver wire. You just don't even think about them. Greg Dulcich, a guy that Broncos fans have been just waiting to be on the field for the last 2 years, drops passes in this game. It's all around ugly and horrible. The only thing you can really do when it comes to the Broncos is stream play their defense in good matchups. So that's my Broncos rant in this video. Let's move on. Couple more games. Awesome game this week, guys. We expected this to be a decent game at least, but not this good. I didn't think after the Bengals week 1 play, but Bengals lose to the Chiefs by 1 game. Shout out to you Chiefs fans if you're watching. I'm obviously not as a Broncos fan. I'm going to push your buttons a little bit. A saying I like to have is referee head. We all know, maybe you don't accept it as a Chiefs fan, but all of us that aren't Chiefs fans know that Chiefs get calls. And don't get me wrong, for the most part, it's probably just because they put themselves in good positions and teams foul them because of it. And that's why they get calls. However, it's crazy to me how often Chiefs get calls, especially late in game calls, that end up just making them win. And that happened in this game. Patrick Mahomes throws 2 picks. One of them was a nasty interception by Britt, I believe his name is, a Bengals cornerback. Nasty one-handed interception. Mahomes is kind of annoying me, and it's biased, because I have him on my fantasy team. It's why is it the 1 or 2 years I have you on my fantasy team, you decide to just not do good anymore? I know his rushing upside is very limited for fantasy, but come on, dude. He's got to. I don't want to see them be good, and the only reason why I have Chiefs on my fantasy team is because I know that they're just always are good. So now that I have Chiefs on my fantasy team, I need Mahomes to kind of figure it out a little bit when it comes to fantasy. However, he throws a couple picks, he throws a couple touchdowns. It's just an average game. Not a big deal. You just keep playing Mahomes without thinking about it. Rashee Rice has a great catch. He looks fantastic. They need to give Rashee Rice the ball more, just like CeeDee Lamb needs the ball more. Rashee Rice is a guy that needs more targets. Xavier Worthy doesn't do as much in this game. He come back down to earth kind of game. Actually, I thought he kind of looked bad in this game. We do have Hollywood Brown missing months. We came out this weekend. He's going to be missing a long time, so Worthy has a big opportunity here. So he's like a flex play still, and then maybe he emerges as more of a wide receiver 2. Rashee Rice, more of that low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 kind of guy. Travis Kelce, once again, tight ends. It's just not going to be a fantastic year for tight ends, it looks like. He'll have some great games, but he's getting older. He looks slower. He's going to have a lot of games where he just doesn't do a whole lot, which is what we saw in this one as well. Pacheco is a big one. He is hurt. He's on the IR. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks. The rest of the running backs aren't very good. I mean, you think they like Carson Steele. I'm assuming he's going to be the guy that gets the majority of carries. However, I could easily see it be kind of a committee. They just signed Kareem Hunt today. They have P. Ryan there. We'll see how they do. You just have to wait and see. I mean, I don't really want to start Steele this week if, like, you have to pick up Steele. But if you do, you're just going to have to maybe temper expectations. I would be surprised if he gets more than 12 touches, like 12, especially 12 carries. So we'll see how they do with the backfield while Pacheco's out. Moving on to the Bengals. Shout out the Bengals. They looked a lot better already. They put up fight on the road. They looked good without T. Higgins. I'm not worried about the Bengals. They're 0-2. They're like the best feeling I have for an 0-2 team this year in the league. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. Zach Moss and Chase Brown are splitting carries. You don't love them either in fantasy. Another one of those situations, Zach Moss is like a low-end running back 2. Chase Brown is like a flex play. I do think Chase Brown just looks more explosive running the ball, but I think they're going to give Zach Moss the majority of the red zone carries, so we'll see how it plays out. Both of them haven't done a whole lot yet, but you wait and see on the running backs for the Bengals. Jamar Chase, he's struggling right now. I mean, I think part of that is just sitting out of training camp. He still had a good game, but it just not like a Jamar Chase game yet. Without T. Higgins, you expect him to go crazy. He still had a good game. I think when T. Higgins gets back, the whole offense is going to open up again, and they're going to look really good. So shout out to, I can't say his name properly. He has that crazy last name, not Burton, but the other guy for the Cincy receivers catches the 2 touchdowns for the team. So he might have scored 3 touchdowns. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But Jamar Chase will figure it out, I think, eventually, just like the Bengals will. Yeah, don't have much else to say about that. Keep an eye on T. Higgins' injury. We're going into week 3. The Sunday night game, low-scoring game, but kind of a fun game. Caleb Williams looked a lot better. He just took what was given to him more often. He makes those easy completions, quote-unquote, look easy, which is a good sign from a rookie quarterback. However, he's still learning how to be a quarterback in the NFL, and I think that's why they lose this game ultimately. Bears defense is legit, I think. They look good. Adunze and DJ Moore were both playing in this game. Keenan Allen was out. I'm a lot lower on Adunze now than I was before. DJ Moore is still, you start him every week. When Keenan Allen's in, I think Adunze is the 3. I put DJ Moore as a very low-end wide receiver 1, and then Keenan Allen and Adunze both at like low-end wide receiver 2 or flex plays. Maybe Keenan Allen is like a wide receiver 2 and Adunze is like a flex play. That's kind of how I break down that receiving core. And then our guy Cole Kmet still hasn't shown a ton yet, so you probably don't want to play him. The Texans, CJ Stroud's good. Mixon got hurt. However, if Mixon is healthy, he's still very good. Their whole receiving core is very good, and Tank Dell, Diggs, and Nico Collins, especially Nico Collins in this game. Nico Collins is a beast. I love Nico Collins as like an NFL player. He looks awesome. And not a whole lot from Schultz, the tight end that we care about. So that's the breakdown for that team. Pretty quick one there. Not a whole lot happened. Texans just look like a good all-around team. Crazy Monday night game. Don't want to spend too much time because I know this is a long video at this point, but this was a very fun game. Falcons at Eagles. Vic Fangio. I'm going to give Vic Fangio a shout-out as a Broncos fan here. Vic Fangio does a Vic Fangio and blows the game and calls a terrible defense late in the game to lose them it. However, definitely can't just blame it on Vic Fangio because on the other side of the ball, Sirianni, or whoever the offensive play caller is there, calls a pass play to Saquon on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2 or something, which would have ended the game, but Saquon drops it. So the play call was dumb. Saquon dropping it was bad on Saquon. I think Vic Fangio steps up. It was just a whole bunch of bad for the Eagles at the end of the game, which is a very bad sign if I was an Eagles fan because of what happened at the end of last year. However, fantasy implications, Jalen Hurts had a great game. He just runs the ball a whole lot, and he looks like a healthy runner as of right now. Devontae Smith is a beast even when A.J. Brown is playing. However, without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith is a wide receiver 1. Don't really care for any of the other wide receivers there. I think without A.J. Brown, it's Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. That's our whole offense. Dallas Goedert looks very mid. He's a playable guy, but again, tight end. Just the tight ends this year are going to be an annoying pain that you just have to deal with and expect very little from. And then get happy when one of them pops off for you if that ever happens. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the Eagles. I mean, Saquon had another good game. However, he drops a pass late. You don't worry about Saquon, obviously, but you play him in fantasy and you feel good about it for sure. On to the Falcons. It was looking like it was going to be a really uninspiring loss until the very last drive where we finally see Drake London get wide open and catch the game-winning touchdown. Shout out Drake London. See what happens when you target Drake London more than 3 times in a game. You give him 5, 6, 7 targets, and he's going to make some plays for you. So they listened, they targeted Drake London, and they ended up winning the game. Kirk Cousins looked a whole lot better in week 2. I think that's to be expected. I think they're just going to start getting a little bit better every week, and then by the midseason, they'll be in midseason form, and they're going to end up being a good offense. Maybe not a great offense, but a good offense. They're committed to running the ball with Bijan. Bijan looked like the best player on the field in this game. Bijan's a beast. Even Tyler Algier, when he got some carries, he looked very good. I didn't realize how good the Atlanta offensive line was when it comes to run blocking. I think that's just going to be what they lean on this year and then set up those play action passes for Kirk Cousins. I think that's what they want to do. Kyle Pitts had a bad game, a tight end kind of game. I think that's going to be our saying this year. He had a tight end game, just a very mediocre game. Doesn't catch a touchdown this week. You continue to have to start him probably. McLeod gets some targets in the receiving game. Mooney catches a touchdown. I still want Drake London. Drake London's like that wide receiver 2. You hope he turns into a high wide receiver 2 this season, just after he continues to develop the connection with Kirk Cousins. You hope that he continues to find the end zone. Mooney and McLeod are both flex plays. Mooney caught the touchdown this week. He looked decent. I think Mooney's a decent receiver, just not a guy I want to play in fantasy football. So, yeah, Bijan used to play every week. Tyler Algier is still kind of a handcuff guy. So that's going to be it, guys. I want to end it and not make it super long, but I really enjoy talking of matchups and reviewing weeks and kind of just getting ourselves ready to go for the next week. Expect another video tomorrow or the next day. Really just diving deep into week 3 matchups and what we're looking for starts and sit-wise in fantasy. As far as this one goes, that's going to be it, guys. Please continue to like and subscribe on the channel if you enjoy it and want to see more. Comment your fantasy questions if you have them. I'll get back to you ASAP, most likely fairly quickly. I don't have a ton of comments coming in, but that's going to be it for this one, as I've said for the 3rd time now. I hope you guys enjoy the next few days. See you in the next one. Peace out.